Hey, good evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook here with State Representative Chris Miller and State Representative Dan Caucus to the Conservative Campfire. And guys, we hope that this is a smarter, safer alternative to any other Sunday night content that you may be exposed to. So with that, Chris, welcome everybody.
Well, it's great to be here, and welcome to the forum where truth, logic, and common sense prevail, as you've heard many times before. But it's just incredible the things that are going on. That Democrats seem like that they're hell bent on destroying Illinois, and with they've got the brake off and full throttle. But anyway, we're grateful you joined us this evening, and hopefully you'll be informed, entertained, and educated. So
exactly. And Dan Calkins live and hopefully in demand. Dan, what's going on?
Oh man, yeah, thanks. I got to be Chris Miller last night at the Shelby County Lincoln Day dinner, Brad, honoring your term. I don't know, like 14 decades of service.
140 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when Abe moved on to DC, Brad took over. And Well, it was a great event last night. Chris, I presented the certificate that you had drawn up for Brad. It was very well received, and Mary was there, and she presented a certificate from the U.S. Congress.
Yeah.
Which is something that you ought to frame, Brad. That was very, very nice.
Yeah.
It's good to see your mom again.
Yeah.
All the great people from Shelby County. We had a great time last night.
Well, were you able to raise any money over there, Dan?
I spent some money. I left money there. I got a raffle. I bought a raffle prize and a couple of gun raffle tickets, and we did good. So hopefully the Shelby County Republican Party is well equipped for the future.
Well, I think we are. It was great to have you, Dan, and many others there. I know you brought a delegation from Macon County, and there was other counties represented there last night. So, yeah, I'd been a party chairman since 2006, except for a couple of years there. And so I decided not to run again last summer. And so I was pleasantly surprised about the recognition last night. So, it was great. A good time. It was a good evening.
Yeah, well earned. It was well deserved, Brad. Everybody was in good spirits.
Yeah,
they wanted to make sure that I couldn't come because they sent me to Greene County, and if you don't know where Greene County is, it's close to the end of the earth on the western side of the state. About a 300-mile round trip, just so they show me how much that they love me.
Yeah. Well, we used your name in debate last night, Chris, and so they knew you wanted to be there, but for the good, like you said, of freedom and liberty, you were traversing the state of Illinois, spreading the good news and good cheer to others in other parts of the state. So
we were spreading the gospel.
We appreciate your sacrifice.
So. Actually, what Brad did is that he threw you under the bus because he talked about Mary going to Tucker Carlson without you. And, how you pouted all week in Springfield because you couldn't go hang out with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Mary was concerned about that too.
Well, I don't think it had her down last night. I don't think she was grieving too much about it last night. So.
No, I'm sure she wasn't. Out of sight, out of mind.
Well, hey guys, before we bring a new definition to mediocrity tonight, we want to maybe kind of help get going here. Hopefully we've got information for folks tonight that will help them navigate the Let's Go Brandon and Let's Go Pritzker economy and the way things are today. Wow, what in the world is going on? You know, we've kind of moved from Christmas and New Year's into spy balloon season, into train wreck season, into bank failure season. What season do we expect next out of this Let's Go Brandon economy?
Oh man,
I don't know, but if you sat down and drew up a script or a blueprint to destroy Illinois and destroy America, I don't know how you could do much better than these guys have done, because they've destroyed safety and security. They're destroying quality education. They're destroying economic opportunity. They're destroying energy independence. That's a biggie.
Yep.
And the border's wide open, both on the Mexican border and also the Illinois border.
Right.
And they just and now I don't know if you want to swerve into this yet, but now we're going to give the illegal criminals driver's license.
Right.
Now, isn't that a special idea? So we can get all these clowns registered to vote.
Right.
Yeah. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So anybody that's watching and you want to take a look at this, it was House Bill 3882. And what a short memory. When Illinois decided back in 2012, 2013, and again, here we go, another lame duck bill in 2013 passed the lame duck. The agreement, or I guess the rationale was that we needed to get undocumented illegal aliens some type of a driver's license so that they could legally drive and get insurance for their cars.
Right.
Fine. And so the compromise at that time was that it would be a distinct driver's license. And it had a purple stripe or a purple background. I don't know. I've never had one. Thank goodness. But, it's worked. And the bill, if you go back and read the original statute, it says that ID was only for driving.
Right.
It had no other purpose. Only to drive. Well, lo and behold, what happened last week? I mean, there she is, Barbara Hernandez and her friends standing up going, my illegal immigrant husband, I mean, come on, can't go to the liquor store and because they won't accept his purple driver's license. And, well, yeah, I mean, that's what the Democrats did. That was the promise they made to the people of Illinois, that they would give them a special identifiable driver's license so that they could sign up and get car insurance. We knew they were driving, they were going to work, taking their kids to school, whatever. So let's let them have a driver's license so they could get car insurance. Was the whole purpose.
Right.
Sure didn't take long, did it?
Nope.
No. Another kind of an interesting caveat to this is I know that I now represent Arthur, which is a heavy Amish community. And I know that some of the Amish fathers over there came to me and said that it would really be a benefit if they could get a state issued ID, just so, they could get a hotel room, they could do this and that, because you have to have an ID to almost do anything. And guess what? Denied. we couldn't get, I mean, the Amish community here is probably the most honest group of people that ever walked on feet, and they're citizens. They live here, make a positive contribution, but the state of Illinois will not issue them an ID that would be recognized by the state, but yet we're bending over backwards to give criminals, because these people by definition are criminals. They're here illegally. We're doing everything that we can. We're probably even giving them free dental and health insurance too, and probably free college. Who would know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you take that Amish community in Arthur and around the state, probably the third largest economic driver in this state.
Oh, yeah.
They ask for a simple state issued ID so that they can do kind of standard business activity, like you say, get a hotel room, maybe open a bank account, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
There's just, no. But so that whomever can go and pick up a prescription or pick up alcohol, and is, they think they're getting discriminated against, we now have to give them full-blown driver's license. So
you can't make it up.
Yeah, well, the good news is passed 72-37, and it's on its way to the Senate. So we'll see how our esteemed senators deal with that one. So yeah.
Now, I think part of the problem is that we weren't properly prepared to debate that bill.
Right.
And I think had we had a little bit more knowledge, and none of us None of us were here, I don't think. Brad, you weren't there, were you?
I remember the debate. I was here. I'm fast becoming a career politician, they would say, after a short 9 years with a break of 2 in the middle of that. But yeah, so I was there. I remember that, and that was the reasoning, is to make sure these drivers could get insurance so they could drive safely on the streets and roads of Illinois.
Yeah. Well, I hope our efforts are now put into helping our friends in the Senate be prepared to discuss this bill when it comes over there, and maybe it'll die there. Maybe instead of fix it in the Senate, let's kill it in the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, here's another fun bill they'll have some fun with. This is going to require all public restrooms, Chris, all of them, be stocked with menstrual products, except churches.
Really? Well, I think that one of the things that we should do next week when we get back is that to offer to have bathroom tours over, on our side, and maybe that the ladies over there would repay the favor. I think wasn't it Carol Ammons that was over there with us the other day, and we offered to let her take a tour.
Yeah, I was going to give her a tour.
She wasn't interested.
I was going to give her a tour of the bathroom there behind us, and because it's perfectly set up to be a multi-gender restroom, because the stalls are kind of down and the urinals are behind the walls mostly, but not entirely. She wanted no part of it. So I presume that Representative Carol Ammons from Champaign-Urbana will not be voting for this bill. But that's not the problem. The problem is that there are 74, 5, 6, I don't know, seems like 1,000 of them, and they only need 60 of these radicals to get something passed. So if you have someone like Carol stand up against it, they still have 74, 4 more people to go get.
Right. Because didn't that just get 60 votes?
60 votes is all it got. 60-40. So all the Republicans voted against it, and only 60 of the 75 Democrats voted for it. So 15 of them, Dan, camped out and didn't vote one way or the other. Didn't vote one way or the other.
Yeah, well, this is the problem that we're seeing in a lot of these bills. And I don't, you talk to some of the Democrats, I've talked to a couple of them, they're just as dismayed as we are that some of these bills are actually getting called. Right. They understand how they get it drafted and filed. We do the same thing. I filed a death penalty bill that I knew wasn't going to get heard. But to actually give some of these crazy ideas a committee hearing, pass it out of committee, and then bring it up on the House floor and get 60 votes or 64 votes for it.
Yeah.
There's no filter.
Right.
You'd have to conclude that over there is not the home of truth, logic, and common sense.
Well,
I'm guessing that little birdie flew away.
And I think you also have to conclude that the chairman don't run their own committees.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that in the prescription drug committee, and we can talk about that bill later. But the chairman did not want to run a bill.
Right.
And a member bullied him into running it against his better judgment, and then bullied him into running the amendment, which didn't fix the bill, didn't really make anything better. And then we'll talk about what happened on the House floor.
Right. Well, hey, let's talk about a couple other bills real quick. Lots of mandates, guys. One mandating electric school buses. That was a big hit. Banning the use of the pronouns boy and girl.
That's some heavy lifting right there, sports
72
fan.
votes. 72 votes on that one. Yeah. I'm like, where does that come from?
Unbelievable. From the nut house.
And here was one that was kind of interesting. This would allow for constitutional officers and General Assembly members to certify or solemnize marriages. That was kind of unique. 77-40. I'm not sure who didn't vote or who was absent that day, but that one is headed to the Senate. But evidently, Republicans, for the most part, thought that was a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're reading the news about these electric vehicles, when they had a big snowstorm up in, I think it was Wisconsin, it might have been Minnesota. The biggest call for help for the police and rescue were people with electric vehicles. In that cold weather, the batteries don't last very long.
Yeah.
So people were getting stranded. They couldn't make the journey that they had planned, or they couldn't get to a charging station because of the snow and whatnot.
Right.
And so they were running around trying to police these people up in these electric vehicles that couldn't withstand the bad weather. This big snowstorm.
Right.
Can you imagine school buses that they're not going to be able to have the range that they're supposed to have if they ever get to an electric school bus, because we get a cold snap. What are you going to do?
Right.
Well, they're full of bad ideas, and this would be one of them.
Well, it seems like their new favorite idea or pastime over there on the majority party side, beside mandates to schools and all kinds of government bodies and to businesses, to expanding abortion and expanding programs, their new pastime seems to be stripping local units of government of their power and authority. And we saw this with a library book ban bill. You guys remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was not a good one.
Yeah. So it strips out a school board or a library board of their ability to decide what books go in or stay out of public libraries. And that was kind of a hot bill. That was kind of a hot one. So, yeah. That seems, again, that's what they seem to be kind of picking up on well, is how to strip out local units. They love to mandate to them, and then they also love to strip out their power. So I'm not sure that's going to end or go well.
Yeah. Well,
hey.
The logic was that, this is the state Secretary of State's prerogative, and not to pass, to fund some of these library programs. And I think the point was well made that the Secretary of State wasn't funding these libraries out of his salary. It wasn't taking it out of his personal fortune. This was federal taxpayer money that was allocated to the states to help support libraries, and that these decisions are best made at the local level, as most decisions are. Just because you live in some ultra liberal, far left, radical school district in Chicago, and you want your kids exposed to this type of literature, doesn't mean that we want it in every school district and every library in Illinois. I mean, it doesn't, it doesn't pass the test. And we can see how well the Chicago public school libraries are doing and helping their kids learn to read and write. I guess if that's your role model, and it seems to be, that's the problem. It seems to be that's the model that these radical Democrats want. They want everybody to emulate the Chicago school district, and so that we're all as uneducated and ill-prepared as they are.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's a reason why we are proponents of local control over things like this, because I don't know, I'm sure that you guys agree that that all of the basically culture in general ought to reflect the values and the morals of the local community where these things are represented. And And I think that it's important for people to wake up and stand up and do whatever they have to do to make sure that the bad ideas from Chicago and the radical left don't invade the culture of their area when it flies in the face of the things that we're actually trying to teach our kids to. So, essence of morality and right and wrong and all the things that we take for granted down here where we live.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the news story that came out this week is that the Illinois Democrats are putting over $300,000 into school board and library board elections.
Yep.
They can't win on their ideas, so
Right.
now they're going to go out and try to interfere with the big piles of money to get behind their extreme candidates to try to fool people into voting for them because they get all of this information. It makes them look like they're popular.
Let me poll the audience here. Would it put off a red flag, or would your alarm go off if the superintendent of schools was endorsing a slate of candidates for re-election?
Yes.
Would that cause your alarm bell to go off and say, what could possibly be going on here? Because I know that in one of the local school board elections that the superintendent had a letter to the editor of his slate of candidates that he was endorsing, and of course they weren't the conservative candidates, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so what he's trying to do is influence an election to get people elected that are his friends,
right? Exactly.
Support him, rather than the people electing the board to represent the community.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the folks in that town, in that school district, catch on and it backfires. But
I do too.
But these elections have always been nonpartisan, even though the teachers union has been actively involved in many of them in recruiting candidates and whatnot. We've never had a political party try to influence a local school board or library board election.
Right.
And I was appalled by it.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, and just to close up on that a little bit too, I don't know if you guys watched the documentary. I think it was called Local One or something just a couple of weeks ago. I think they said that the Chicago Teachers Union has funded 56 state reps.
Wow.
So 56 out of 74, that's a fair amount of them.
Yeah.
They have actually put money into their race. So they're playing both sides, right? They're buying state reps, and now they're influencing the local elections. And so, I'm not sure that's going to work out for parents and students very well.
No.
I know they've got quite an investment on our side of the aisle.
I gotta go.
Got it right. Hey, so let's talk about Friday night, guys. We had been deadline week was this past week. We were trying to get all the House bills out of the Senate by midnight Friday night, and the shenanigans were setting in late Friday evening, and HB 7957. That was, I think she's a freshman, isn't she, Dan? Rep Saeed is a freshman legislator. Yes. And she had some kind of a prescription drug bill. Dan, this was in a committee that you're our spokesperson in, right? Is that correct?
That is correct. She is, and she's a very young lady, very articulate, very smart young lady. And she's been given some bills to carry in her freshman year that are, for the most part, pretty far left. But this particular bill came to our prescription drug committee. The chairman, Representative Williams, did not like the bill. And he and I talked before our committee hearing, and he said, I asked him, are you going to call this bill? And what the bill does is it puts price controls on generic drugs under the auspices that there's price gouging going on. That these generic drugs are being marketed at exorbitant prices. And there are instances of that happening. There's no question, and we've seen it. but there's also other remedies, federal and state remedies, if rather than to put this massive bill together. And the chairman said, I don't want to call the bill. And I said, fine, because we don't want to pass it. And then she came over and whined and groveled and made noises, and I don't know what happened. And he went against his better judgment, called the bill. And of course, once the Democrat calls a bill in a committee, all the Democrats are going to vote for it. They think that, this is the rule here. So it passed out of committee on a promise to hold, and we're getting kind of in the weeds. And she went out and did an amendment to try to fix some of the problems that we had identified. And then she came back in the last moment and wanted to have her amendment heard. And I told the chairman, I told Representative Williams, I said, you should have listened to your gut the first time and not called the bill. So he wasn't going to call it. And then lo and behold, and I have no idea how this happened because I've not seen anything like this in the 4 years that I've been there. The bill shows up with the amendment in the committee, and the chief co-sponsor is none other than Chris Emanuel Welch, the speaker. So somehow he ends up as the chief co on the bill. So we have to hear it, and now it shows up on the House floor. And what we did, I don't know how many bills. I know we did 142 bills on Thursday.
Yeah, I think the final total Friday night was just over 100, 110, 118 or 20 bills maybe finally got passed Friday night.
But we probably had another 50 or 60 of them to go.
Right.
So 9:30 at night, the bill shows up on the House floor. We've been fighting with this thing all night. The Democrats were leaving. I mean, they'd had enough. They were tired. They had to get back to Chicago. The weather was getting bad, and you could watch them. They'd trickle out. Cam Buckner would leave, and Stava Murray would leave, and just one at a time. They get their bills heard. They knew they weren't going to have any more bills on the floor, and they'd go home. Well, it got down to the fact at 9:30 at night that 15 or so of them had already left.
Right.
And they were still trying to pass bills. And so this controversial bill comes up. We're ready to debate it. We're also going to call for a roll call vote. Now, for the folks that are listening, a roll call vote isn't just the lights up on the board. The roll call vote is that each individual member must vote their own switch. They must push the red or green button on their own. You cannot have your staff run around and push your button because you're eating pizza in the back room or you're in the speaker's office or the leader's office or having a conference. When they call for that vote, every member stops what they're doing and goes to their seat and votes. Well, the Democrats tried to pull this little trick because we were on this real limited debate. So they got one of their members, and I'll not mention Robert DeLuca's name, to push the button, and they recognized him before they recognized me. Well, okay. I mean, the majority, they get to recognize their member first. But he stood up and spoke in opposition of the bill. He spoke against the bill. Well, that eliminated my ability to speak against the bill because they were only going to have one person on each side debate the bill. So when he spoke against the bill, that cut off my ability to vote or to debate the bill. Well, then they tried to shut me down. I called immediately for the roll call vote. Any member can call for a roll call vote. And I called for it before they had gotten through the process. Now that caused a huge debate. We finally got through the parliamentarian procedures and the rules of the House. And fortunately, our attorney and Patrick Windhorst were on the ball. And we made them take the roll call vote. And they had 63 votes in favor of this bill. By the time Patrick got done, we had him down to 59, and I think we could have gotten to 57 because there were a couple of other people. Well, by the time we got under 60, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. So what these despicable people have done is that they had their staff voting their switch, voting when it was told that this is a recorded vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted a roll call vote on this. And their staff still ran around and pushed buttons, knowing what was coming. And I'm not so sure that's not an ethics violation, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I think we ought to let the Inspector General decide on this one.
Right. Well, and it doesn't have to be late in the evening, guys. I mean, we've seen any time of the day. I mean, you can watch over there. People are not in their seats, and the staff is voting their switch. And, through the day, you can give them some grace, right? Because constituents are there, and maybe they're taking a few minutes to meet with them. But Friday night, it was either the third or fourth time, Dan, that roll call or a vote verification had been called. And when names were being called out, they were just barely walking back in the chamber. Somebody else had voted their switch, and staff had actually went out into the hallways and rounded them up wherever they were and got them back in there. And as long as they were back in the chamber before the vote verification, before their name was called, it was all well and good.
Yeah. And I asked the doorkeeper, I said, when we call for verification, can you lock the doors? You're either in your chair or you're not. You're in, or you're not in. And Wayne said, no, he can't lock the doors under those circumstances, because we watched Will Gazzardi come in with his coat on and waving and smiling. They drug him out of the parking lot. I'm sure they did. I mean, he was on his way home.
Right.
They had a couple other people pop in at the last minute because they,
Yeah, I didn't know why they let them get away with that, because the speaker that was in the well before we voted said every member has to be in their seat and every member has to vote their own switch.
Right.
And so I don't know why they tolerated even that much of them walking in there, because they weren't in their seat. They didn't vote their switch. And I'm not sure why that counted, just because they showed up on the House floor after the fact.
Right. Well, I think that's something we need to take up.
Yeah.
But that's the underhanded stuff that we go through.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. They have enough people.
Right.
But their own members don't think enough of the process. Mm-hmm. They don't honor their commitment. And so they try to cheat the system. And they got caught Friday night.
Yep.
Big time.
Yep. Well, it's making a mockery of the system. It's not good. This is not good government. And hopefully investigations are going to take place and sort this all out, because, guys, there's videotape on all this. I mean, it's every minute of this floor action is on videotape. It's live streamed out to 2 different platforms, so it's not like it's a secret. It's there to be seen. So this isn't going to take much.
No. Yeah.
Hey, let's touch on this thing here real quick before. This is breaking news out of Cook County. I think you guys have read this report. I was just stunned when I read this late Friday afternoon. And, we've been very, I guess, maybe rough on the governor because of the way he's handled every agency, the way he's handled these budgets over the last 4 years, the way he's handled the virus. But this deals with DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services. The story reads, a 16-year-old girl was a sex trafficking victim. And we learned today that DCFS placed her with the care of a 3-time convicted felon who was accused of forcing her into prostitution. This guy was a licensed foster parent.
Right. With 3 felonies.
3 felonies.
Yeah.
And DCFS was putting 16-year-old girls in his care and paying him to care for her.
To care for her. We'll, I spent the last about 3 years now on a working group, with a DCFS working group with the House and the Senate, and it's bipartisan. There's 3 House members, Republicans and Democrats, and 3 senators, Republicans and Democrats. So there's not like we're normally see in a committee. This is a bicameral, truly bipartisan group. And we worked hard over the last 3 years to try to figure out what to do about DCFS. And I for the life of me, I don't know.
Right.
They spend their time, and I can give you. There's a family in Springfield that they're harassing because their young baby had a tongue bleed, and they've had the baby to the doctor. They've taken the baby away from the mom. She's breastfeeding. They took the baby away from the mom because somebody thought the baby had been abused.
Mm.
The pediatrician has written 2 letters and willing to testify that there's no abuse in this baby. DCFS doesn't want to believe it, and they've taken the baby away, and they're making the baby go to Peoria for tests and x-rays and God knows what, and spending how much money on this. This is just one case that this poor family is going through. And then you turn around and you find out these other problems. I don't know what the answer is. $1 billion, over $1 billion in this agency.
Right.
And folks, if you know somebody that's caught up in this DCFS web, reach out to your state rep, bring it to their attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If you don't get the attention, you don't get the help that family needs, find one of us. We're not afraid.
Yep.
We're not afraid to stand up to DCFS.
Yep.
And it's a mess. And the more we push and the more we find, I truly don't know the answer. Some people say to totally break that monster up and put the responsibility back on every county. That's probably not a bad idea other than the funding. I don't know how you then make the General Assembly fund each county the way it should be funded. Then you get into partisan politics, and Macon County doesn't get properly funded, but Champaign County does. I don't know, but there's got to be some reform.
Well, guys, this isn't the first time DCFS has been in the headlines.
No.
And this is all at the governor's feet. He manages all these agencies or puts the directors in these agencies to manage. And so leadership starts at the top. Dan, you're right. I mean, the General Assembly appropriates the money and the funding for these agencies. However, they've got to have a change in policy and got to have it fast. And I don't know how they pull all this stuff out of the ditch and make it work, but they got to come up with something. They're the ones in charge. They've got super majorities in both chambers. They've got all the constitutional offices. That's what they wanted. It's time for them to govern and to lead on these issues. And when you have situations like this, it's just appalling.
Yep.
It is.
All right. Hey, guys, maybe we better put a wrap on that. Thank you all for tuning in tonight and being a part of this. And hopefully Tuesday night, we'll be back with part 2 of our legislative agenda and give you kind of an update from there. And of course, as things break. And we did go live Friday night, guys, after this shenanigans that happened on the House floor there. We went live about 10:30, so you can go back and catch those on YouTube and on the Illinois Freedom Caucus's Facebook site. Guys, any closing thoughts before we bug out of here?
Well, just a real quick thank you, Brad, for doing this. And I know everybody missed us Tuesday night, but not only were we in session until about 8 o'clock, but Brad had we had committee hearings and such until about 9:30 or 10.
Right.
And it's just not possible that when we're caught up in that kind of a time frame.
Right.
But we'll do our best to get back to everybody Tuesday night.
Yep.
We go back in session noon on Tuesday, and let's see what happens.
Right.
Thanks for doing it, and good to see everybody.
Yep.
We'll
Excellent.
talk to you Tuesday night.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.